Welcome to the Stockout. This is your show at FreightWaves for all things related to the CPG and retail industries. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Baudendistel, joined by Grace Sharkey. Grace, I'm going to ask you about your upcoming article. I guess it should be up on the site by now on the ILA in a second. And then we're also going to go through just a little tour of the site. A lot of articles up about the ILA situation, which is really going to be the topic, at least until the end of the month, hopefully not too far after that. And then we're also going to interview Frank Hurst, who's been on the show before, and we're going to be happy to have Frank back. Frank is EVP of LTL at Roadtex, which does temperature-controlled LTL, which sounds very stressful. So we'll talk to Frank. And before we do that, want to encourage everyone to sign up for the Stockout newsletter. You can do that at www.freightwaves.com/the Stockout, or just go to the site, up on top, newsletters, right under supply chains. And also want to encourage our viewers to join us in Chattanooga for F3, which is the Future of Freight Festival, and there is a special discount code. There's some B-roll here on that great conference. The discount code for the Stockout viewers or the Stockout newsletter readers or anyone who's just heard of the Stockout is F3 Stockout 24. So sign up with F3 Stockout 24. You'll get a discount as a thank you for joining and listening to this show. This is going to take place in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the week before Thanksgiving. So that is going to be a busy time. I guess a short number of days this year between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So with that, as a little bit of an intro, Grace, wanted to ask you about what you've been writing up as far as the ILA and automation, which is always a sticking point in addition to pay and benefits and those things.
Yeah, earlier this summer, they came out. This was really ended talks to the point to where we are now waiting for that end of the month expiration, which I think we both hope won't end up being as huge of a deal, but the automation, of course, is becoming a big problem with it, and it's their main focus when they did halt earlier this summer. Now, I want to put out here what the ILA is saying in particular in regards to automation. They've always been very protective of their union members when it comes to adding automation at the ports, which makes sense, right? You want to make sure that these employees not only are able to keep those jobs as well-paying jobs at this point, but of course that they aren't pushed out because of technology. So according to them, after discovering that the APM terminals and Maersk lines are utilizing an autogate system, and particularly at the Port of Mobile, and they're also hearing at this point at other locations. That's where they halted their talks until further analysis was done on what they're going to do about autogate systems. Now, I will say the USMX came back stating that they are looking to retain the existing technology language within their current agreement, which also already formalizes the way that automated technology would be, of course, implemented or even looked into, which we'll get into kind of that system here in a second. And also formalize that there will be no fully automated terminals. I think their big fear is kind of the LA situation, which is more, I think, of a emissions challenge than so much automation itself. And what's interesting is I will say, I'm going to throw some truths out there right now. And this is what I've been working on, is diving into that claim of the autonomous gates in particular at the Port of Mobile. Now, there are reports out there that this technology has been being used since 2008. And I'm sure with your knowledge and some of the reporting that we've done, that was 2 contract periods ago. 2012 was a big one for fear of automation as well, and that came up, and in 2018. So it is confusing that what they're pointing out as a problem is something that has been in use, again, 2 whole contract periods ago. Another point that they bring up within that issue with autogates is that they're apparently looking for 2 reports. They didn't specify the reports directly that they're looking for, but 2 reports from government agencies showcasing that basically automation won't take their jobs, and that it can be useful, and that I think really that the investment of these automated gates is worth the potential of maybe a few jobs being moved around within the ports. Now, I couldn't find those what exact reports they're looking for, but the GAO, or the Government Accountability Office, did do actually reports on automation at the ports as a part of course, the Biden administration's analysis of looking at not only automating but updating our port structure as well. And so, what's interesting is the top 10 ports in the United States for years, along with the top 10 ports across the world, have always the last at least a decade have used automated gates. So it's kind of, again, interesting to see that this is the main problem, and one listed in particular. I will say, to kind of quote some of this specific study, which you'll see cited in the article too, is that part of that as well is that they work with what they call a new technology committee alongside the ILA. And what that technological committee does is they, of course, have to define the technology being used, determine manning for new equipment, identify new work created by the technology, determine who would be reassigned, so basically what workers would be affected by that. And again, that's the same technology rhetoric that's been used, that new technology committee that's been used in the last two master contracts too. So let's say, for instance, it wasn't put into place in 2008, and it was put into place even in the last master contract period between 2018 and now. It still would have had to go through the ILA's technology committee in order to be approved. So to say that it's happening, but they did not know about it, for me is tough. Now, we've reached out to Maris in particular, hoping to hear back from here shortly, and we've reached out to ILA as well and haven't heard back on what exactly they could be concerned with, or maybe how this got past their systems. There is a possibility that they could have maybe realigned a job that didn't get noticed by the technology committee. But again, in some of the GAO's reporting, there's two big reports that I looked into, and again, will be cited in the article. They actually discussed those reports and list in there that those discussions happened with both of the longshoremen labor unions, so including the ILA as well. So again, does that argument have merit? I think it's really difficult to say that it does at this point, seeing that what they're saying they didn't know about, or what's affecting their workers and their workforce placement. They didn't know at all that it was happening, and that this is something new, I think is the evidence behind that's really difficult to find. And again, the ILA hasn't formally said what exactly happened to make that statement. Now, I will say I also found a GAO report on just overall lost jobs due to automation. And there is some concern, of course, that jobs will be lost and moved and changed. And that goes back into that survey, or that study, that training is necessary, and that making sure that these individuals are trained into different positions so that those jobs aren't technically lost, but just changed. And that same type of training concern is listed in the master contracts, along with parts within the new technology committee and how they work inside that master contract too. So again, if you look at a lot of like what Michael Rudolph wrote about, I believe just yesterday, this did come up in 2012, and there were some concerns, of course, that things would change with what, of course, was happening at that time. But even in that situation, during that time, the ILA was given guaranteed that those jobs would be, basically those displaced workers would be placed into new opportunities as well, including the training that goes along with it. So it's for me, it's difficult to see, and we talked about this in the last episode, the true automation concerns. I think a part of it is the Biden administration has been very focused and the Shipping Reform Act did, of course, dive into the fact that we need to update our ports. We talked about in the last episode how our ports are behind on technology efforts compared to others, especially across the globe. So I think I'm hoping at the end of the day, this doesn't come down just to automation issues, maybe instead pay or something along those lines. But I think you and I both said that we're hoping and we think that by the end of this month that this won't be a labor issue that causes some concern for clearly shippers across the United States.
Yeah, it did seem like the ILA was looking for a reason to drag this out to get it to the deadline because it's really where the leverage they have. And I also get the impression that there's going to be some government intervention we've seen in past strikes, President invoking the Taft-Hartley Act to put workers back to work. But we have lots of articles to this effect up on the site coming from a lot of different angles, sort of all hands on deck. Situation with editorial, and I'm not on editorial. I still got involved, wrote up some of the takeaways for sonar, some of the data points in sonar that have moved in response or in anticipation of potential work stoppage, things like moving more cargo to the West Coast, more intermodal volume because that benefits from West Coast volumes, and then even on the truckload side, sort of what's happening to some of those port cities. So lots of good articles on the site. So I encourage you to go to the site and freightwaves.com and check those out. And Grace, do you want to intro today's guest? Want to leave enough time for him?
Yeah, of course. No, like you said, excited to have him back here with us, of course. Frank Hurst, EVP of LTL at Roadtex. Frank, thank you so much for joining us again here on the Stockout. And for our audience who might not be familiar with Roadtex, can you give us a little a snippet of exactly what you're helping do, especially in the LTL industry?
Roadtex is a temperature-controlled warehousing and transportation arm with 32 facilities across the country within that temperature range of 55 to 65 degrees, all with FDA-certified food-grade warehouses. And we have a great consolidation solution going to Walmart and other big box retailers at the same time.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that consolidation. And something that we hear a lot about, retailers trying to streamline things, move LTL into truckload. How do you view that as sort of being an effective strategy, and sort of what do shippers need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. To me, I think when I think of cost of shipping into big box retail specifically, it really to me comes into the most important piece is service and quality. Right, because big box retailers, as you know, have fines and chargebacks when shippers fail to meet on time and full requirements, required appointment dates, and so forth. And so when shippers have low OTIF scores, then they get fines and chargebacks at the same time. They may lose in-cap display space and so forth within as they're positioning their products within these big box retailers. And the second, you got to look at the total supply chain cost. It's more than just the cost of transportation. It involves fines and chargebacks. So you got to look at a holistic view overall when you think about shipping into big box retailers. So to me, it's like partnering with an expert who has a solution where you can not only improve efficiencies, reduce cost, and improve your service. To me, just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, I've been a part of a brokerage in the past, and if anyone had LTL partial shipments, I stayed way away from them because they're very difficult to manage. So happy that you have focused on this exact area. And what's interesting, though, of course, is the fact that you're not only doing this difficult piece of freight, but you're allowing for direct shipping in particular of this type of freight, which does, of course, lower the risk for a lot of the shippers out there who are afraid of damage, right? Reducing the touches, of course, especially with this type of product, and I'm sure refrigerated product in particular can be difficult. Can you explain to the audience why direct shipping has the problems that it does, how it helps with some of the problems of LTL? And why do you feel like companies don't utilize more direct shipping options than they currently have in front of them?
Well, I think it's a great point. At Echo, we're huge fans of consolidation. We've got two really nice solutions in the temperature controlled space. We have a reefer consolidation program today that's what that 33 to 40 degree space with consolidation. And then we have a consolidation program within Roadtex in these 32 warehouse facilities that we have. We also have some chilled 5,000 foot chilled storage units in there for cross dock and even on the reefer consolidation piece. But to me, I think it makes sense that you have exceptional service, improved efficiencies and quality, and overall reduction. Why do shippers not use it more? I tend to think sometimes I like to say that status quo can be our largest customer. There's few nationwide consolidators out there in the temp-controlled space today. Roadtex is one of those. And look, shipping into mass merchants and big box retail, it can be pretty daunting, especially like I talked about earlier with OTIF scores and required appointment dates. And I think shippers sometimes are so focused on their individual product and driving their market share and sales and so forth that they tend to look at the transportation as just it's almost a cost of doing business with fines and chargebacks. And so that's why I like to challenge people to go, like I said earlier, go to an expert that's in consolidation and see how they can help you in an area that whether it could be working through streamlined appointments, like you said, running truckloads into DCs instead of individual LTL shipments. At the same time, to be able to reduce your total costs because you don't have the pickup and delivery costs that you do because you are running full truckloads into these mass merchants.
Yeah, and with the direct shipping, you must be taking out some intermediate steps by going directly to the customer that should reduce trucking miles, improve sustainability. Can you talk a little bit about, have you quantified any of those metrics?
That's a great point. Yeah, I think every time we get in front of a customer now, sustainability is always prevalent in the conversation when it comes to shippers. We just launched recently a pool consolidation program for Walmart in Indiana and also in New Jersey. And then we're getting ready to launch pool points in Southern California and Texas. And already we've seen a double digit, we're talking almost 20% reduction in miles per shipment just by running direct. At the same time, you think about the efficiency piece, that these are not just truckloads that are floor loaded. These have sometimes 45 to 48 pallets that are on there because we work hand in hand with the retailers to make sure that we're pooling all the shipments together. So we're maximizing the space of that unit, again, which allows us to be very cost competitive and still provide levels of service in excess of 98% on time. So it is from a sustainability standpoint, there's a lot of benefits as well, just in the reduction in our carbon footprint, same time reduction in miles per shipment, and just efficiency in the overall network.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially bringing up companies like Walmart that you're working with. I know, of course, on timeliness is huge, but the quality, right, of the product, making sure if it's popsicles or something along those lines, right, that we don't have melted product and making sure everything's fresh that comes in as well. It's all of those risks come with, of course, temperature controlled. And I'm sure there's other industries as well, pharmaceuticals, et cetera, that can have the same issues, which is a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, right, on companies like yourself who are moving that. How do you mitigate those risks? How do you make sure that, especially the temp controlled aspect of this, is everything's consolidated correctly and that the customer has a positive outcome at the end of it?
Well, we're all consumers, right? So we go to our local grocery stores or our big box, and we're not going to pick up the carton that's crushed on the side. We're going to make sure we want the one that's in excellent condition, right? At the same time, when we get home, we want to ensure that the product is of freshness and quality, the packaging is proper, and so forth. So when I think about how do we preserve quality, whether it's a product that requires chilled, like a drink or so forth, then with our reefer consolidation program, we monitor all of our equipment. We monitor the coolers in our facilities to make sure 24/7 that the range is within the range that's required by the shipper. And the same thing within our Roadtex facilities. Every facility is monitored at 55 to 65 degrees year round with backup processes. And then we monitor all of our equipment at the same time. But the one real differentiator for us is that Our facilities are FDA certified, food grade facilities. They are the cleanest of clean environments, which is unlike sometimes. I grew up in the LTL business with a cross dock with with dust on the floor and pallets and so forth. This is a much different environment, being a clean environment. So shippers don't have to worry about quality concerns. They don't have to worry about temperature ranges. We track and monitor all of those items. At the same time, we partner with a lot of our shippers to build displays and do value-added services that for shipping into big box. Ensure those quality performances is there when they build the displays and so forth.
Yeah, Frank, you mentioned working with Walmart and big box. I mean, they just have so many different suppliers. I mean, are there any unique challenges associated with consolidating shipments across, large number of suppliers when they may have different temperature requirements and those things?
Well, I think that the one great thing about working with a consolidator is we work directly with the big box retailer to align those appointments, so they don't have to worry about missing on time in full requirements, missing required delivery appointments, because we work directly with them. At the same time, I think when you think about outsourcing your product to a consolidator, it also ensures that we're going to make sure they're on time, the level of quality is there, and the level of service is really what drives the decision making when working with the consolidators.
Can you touch on as well, when working with a consolidator, how costs are brought down, right? Because hey, on this show, we're constantly talking about getting the cost of, like you said, the goods and the foods and everything we love coming down at our homes. And I know in order to do that, shipping costs likely have to of course, come down as well. So how does working with a consolidator help bring those costs down and hopefully get back into the consumer pockets as well?
Sure. A lot of our shippers that are in our consolidation programs today are actually warehouse customers as well. So we physically work with them to make sure their inventory levels are accurate for what they need to fulfill the orders going into big box. And also, if you think about it, if they're in our facility and we have our transportation facilities within our warehouses, there's no pickup cost. Right, there's no pickup cost. There's no from a cost of transportation. And at the same time, the delivery cost is really mitigated as well because we're running direct. So it really allows us to be more efficient from a cost standpoint. And at the same time, it allows our customers to work directly with us and the big box retailers on how much inventory, because in essence, like Walmart with our pool points, they physically will work to align the POs properly with other vendors to make sure it's efficient and it makes their on time in full requirements. So really think about that's the way you reduce your costs, because you're running full truckloads and you're really taking out two key components of cost within transportation.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about the importance of avoiding OTIF, and I think you said your on-time rate is 98%, so really impressive, especially because you're moving temperature controlled and sort of high-value items like pharma, which those OTIF fees tend to be based on the value of the goods. Pharma would be, a high-value item. How are you able to achieve that 98%? And then what are some of the pitfalls that you avoided?
I think how we achieve it is we work hand in hand with our shippers and we work hand in hand with our big box retailers, like I said, to make sure we're aligning must arrive by dates. And many times we're working to set appointments well before we even receive the shipment sometimes. So we could receive a tender and our teams are working at that point, working through all of our portals to make sure that we're aligning the appointment times. Obviously, we only partner with the safest and highest quality carriers that are out there and drivers. So we will ensure that our scheduling and arrival times meet the alignment. At the same time, listen, we have a highly engineered network with technology that allows for full-time track and trace, and to make sure that we're meeting the commitments that our customers have. And then we spend a lot of time working with our shippers in quarterly business reviews, looking through the data. Right, we're big fans of data at Echo. We want to make sure that we're sitting down and working with our customers to understand exactly what their on-time performance is, where there are opportunities, and then we'll deploy teams physically to go in the field to work for areas that we can improve that. But like I said earlier, when you're shipping into big box, you have to make your on time and full requirements, and that's really why we feel that we're a great solution. We're kind of experts in the space.
Love it. Well, Frank, we got a lot of suppliers, I'm sure, watching this show and thinking, well, how can we learn more about the consolidation program, and which suppliers would be best candidates to reach out to learn more as well?
I think any supplier that we have that ships into big box retail, I think we're a great option. And especially if you have a temperature range or you have product that you're concerned about, potential quality areas, again, anywhere from 33 to 65 degrees. And if you need help in building displays, value-added services, pick and pack, we've got all of those solutions at Echo and at Roadtex. And so what I would say is you can reach out to me directly at frank.hurst@echo.com, or you can go to echo.com or roadtex.com and see our entire suite of solutions that we have.
Love
Great.
it.
Would encourage people to do that.
Yeah. Frank, thank you again. We're gonna have you on a third time here soon to keep this yearly trend going. And I appreciate you and Echo and everything that you're doing at Roadtex as well. Our audience, make sure you go check them out. And again, wrapping up this wonderful episode, go join our community on FreightWaves.com. Make sure you check out live.freightwaves.com for our virtual event next week, and of course, more info on F3. And make sure that you check out our discount code in the next newsletter too. Until then, we'll talk with you next week.